Humanoids from the Deep was the last movie that Dave and I watched in person together, I think. But then we tried to watch a couple things, and there was this thing called Rabbit, but that was before they started doing like group watch on Disney Plus and like party on Netflix. Like Rabbit was like log into your accounts and all your friends can come in and watch it.
Oh,
And
yeah.
we tried to Rabbit a couple times. We tried to Rabbit, I think Groundhog's Day. It didn't quite work, and then
I remember
we tried
that.
to use it for Predator 2.
Yeah.
And it kind of screwed up the sound on Predator 2, you know? We tried to throw a commentary episode together, and it kind of blew out the stereo on us. So, you know, hey, lesson learned, folks. Don't use this app named Rabbit.
Yeah.
I don't even think it exists anymore.
Them, but yeah, it's gone. Just like
I think it's long.
What's that vertical TV app that just disappeared?
QB?
Yeah, QB's
Oh,
gone.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, $1 billion experiment. I hope the Reno 911 guys got some real cash out of that deal. Because they had the best show going on there.
I hope so.
Let's see here. All right, we're going to start talking about feel-good movies. So for the audience that's following along at home, Collins, I think it's Collins Dictionary or Dictionary.com defines a feel-good movie as a film which presents people and life in a way that makes the people who watch it feel happy and optimistic. But before we talk about Gung Ho, let's go to home video headlines and see what we've heard about movies and TV. Actually, I mean, probably the biggest headline is Sean Connery died. I mean, dude lived to 90. I mean, that's got to be a pretty fulfilled life.
It's a pretty good life, man.
Yeah, pretty good life. Starred in a ton of movies. One of the greatest actors of all time. Considered a man's man. Basically, generally got the respect of every other man on the planet. So, while also being nice to women, I don't think there's a bad story of the dude. There's no Me Too Sean Connery stories out there, as far as I know.
Absolutely, there is.
Really?
Yeah.
Are you
interview from the 80s where he talks about slap.
You know what's funny about this? Like, if you're listening to audio, you can't see the expression on Dave's face that I just created. So if you're watching the video version, then you're getting a kick out of that one. We're just gonna go around the room and talk about like our favorite Sean Connery movies. Let's start with Nick. You got a couple that you like from dear old Sir Sean Connery?
I have two, but I'll just go with Hunt for Red October. That was like freaking incredible, and he's so good in that movie. And it's a great movie. I watched it like a year ago. It still holds up.
What movie?
Hunt for Red October.
Oh yeah, okay. That's like my least favorite Sean Connery movie.
John, I'm gonna slap you.
I think I said that too when I was talking about being obsessed with all these submarine dramas. That one like disappointed me. You know,
I did
a lot of hype. You know, some titles get so famous. There's like a lot of hype. You know, like Dave, didn't you recently watch Scarface?
No.
No,
that wasn't on your list. I think Chinatown, which is what you gave me crap.
Oh, I remember Chinatown.
Oh yeah. Dave has a few golden oldies that he's got to get to, and yeah. All right. So, Dave, what's one of your favorite Sean Connery movies? Or a few. I mean, it could be more than one. It doesn't have to be one. It could be whatever.
I'm gonna give you two, and they're both from '96. And these, I mean, these are kind of obvious, but like these two I saw, I think, at the drive-in when I was that age. It came out. But Dragonheart and The Rock, like those hold a special place for me because I mean those came out in the same summer. Like I said, I saw them at the drive-in.
Yeah.
What's that?
Oh, I totally forgot about that. Wow.
Yeah. And that goes to show how good of an actor he was because it was just a voice performance. But like, damn, if you're not welling up at the end of that movie, I'm just saying, like, music kicks in, and you're like, oh god, it's a dragon, but no. So
is it a feel good too? Would you?
It is. That actually
Dragonheart, yeah, it's redeemable. It's redemptive, right? Yeah. It can be considered a feel good movie for sure. Adam, we're over to you. You got a few Sean Connery movies that you like?
Yeah. When I was younger, I read this like Rudyard Kipling story, The Man Who Would Be King or whatever. It's about these two like British guys that end up, trying to take over a small country, being like evil little statists, and they like subjugate the people. And it's a commentary on British imperialism. And Sean Connery was in the movie version of it, 1975, with Michael Caine. It's kind of a strange pick, but it's worth a watch. It's very peculiar. It's a very interesting film. And the other one is Time Bandits, a Terry Gilliam or early Terry Gilliam movie.
King
A lot
Agamemnon.
of people don't realize Sean Connery's even in that movie, and it's so like, whoa. And he plays this, generous king that takes the boy under his wing, and a vital role in that movie. And it was probably as a child, probably the first time I saw Sean Connery not in a 007 movie. So those are my picks.
I kind of said I'll second Adam's Man Who Would Be King. I almost picked that myself, but that's like a really good underseen movie of his.
Yeah, he's in a lot of James Bond movies. Like he's like the number one guy that played James Bond besides what's his name?
Roger Moore.
Roger Moore.
Yeah.
But he's also his last James Bond movie was he said he would never do it again, and his wife came up with the title "Never Say Never Again" was literally the last James Bond that he was in, and it kind of leans itself to a little bit of comedy, right?
Yeah.
Here's my list. Also, Dragonheart. I love Dragonheart, but I also have League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, where he plays Alan Quatermain, the skilled hunter who has to meet like all the monsters and go after like all the baddies and that. And they tried to
that
make
was his last movie, right?
Movie series. Yeah, it was one of
that was.
Big ones, yeah.
He hated the production of that, by the way. No, he did.
Well,
read it.
But he did good. I mean, he said like he doesn't understand like superhero movies. Like they offered him to play like maybe I don't know who it was, Aragorn or Gandalf. Somebody Gandalf maybe like in Lord of the Rings, and he's like his quote is like I don't understand this. Like but the poor guy got dementia, so who knows what happened first, dementia or passing on that movie. But I also like him in this is like definitely a flight of fancy, and you got to suspend your disbelief because he's not a Spaniard, and it's hard to believe he's a Spaniard. But his name was Ramirez. He still had a Scottish accent in the Highlander series. He's the mentor of the main immortal. He teaches, he teaches Connor. I think it's Connor McLeod is first, and then Duncan comes. Yeah, so. Teaches Connor McLeod how to be an immortal, and then battles the Kurgan in the original. But then he gets brought back in the second one with a little bit of magic, time travel, whatever you want to say it is. But anyway, and last but not least, I think this is the one he won the Academy Award for, is Untouchables. Right? Mm-hmm. He plays an Irish beat cop who gets assigned to like the first branch of the FBI or whatever it is, and they're like going after Capone, right? In Chicago or whatever. He teaches the guys the Chicago way.
Chicago.
Yeah. But we're not talking about we're not spending the whole night talking about Sean Connery movies.
Oh, we could.
Again,
we could, yeah.
Well, we could. It could be an episode, yeah. There definitely could be a retrospective. But tonight's movie is Gung Ho from 1986. It's a Ron Howard movie. Last year, Dave and I actually did a pretty decent run of Ron Howard stuff where we talked about Willow. We did mention Backdraft. We did talk about a little bit about Gung Ho. It's definitely a feel-good movie pick for me, and that's why I threw it out for today's episode. Being up to bat with the selections, that's just something that came down to the wire, and it's like, let's do this movie. It's also called Working Class Man, like in the UK and Australia, as it gets released. But essentially, an American auto worker who was like a foreman at a clothes plant spends his own money to go to Japan and convince a Japanese automobile company to go and reopen the plant in his hometown. He's convinced his whole town that it's a good idea because they're all rooting for him to do it. And it's, of course, played by Michael Keaton, the guy who can deliver false promises like no other person in the history of comedic
especially acting. In that time, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So... At like the top of his game, he flies off to Japan to convince this auto company, and they buy into his BS because they go and reopen the factory on the promise that like you make a certain amount of cars, we'll keep the factory open. If they don't, no raise, no union, we close the plant forever, blah blah blah. And then it's like a clash of cultures. You bring in the Japanese executives, they have their own thing, and like we see that right in the beginning of the movie, the differences. And but what's funny about this movie is business schools, economics classes, and Toyota training uses this as basically they say like this is how not to manage Americans. That's Toyota plays this to their executives, right?
I read that.
Yeah. And then business schools over here will also watch this movie and examine it. But some interesting trivia is like the factory is realistic. They were actually building Fiats, two types of Fiats, the Regatta and the Spazio in Argentina. So they spent like a number of weeks down at a real auto plant that had been closed. And they reopened it for the movie. Supposedly, the screenwriter Edward Bloom was watching 60 Minutes about Asian companies coming in and buying out American companies or American companies that were in the dumps, like revitalizing them with foreign money. But then there's another screenwriter. I've never even heard of this lady. Her name is Diane Asimov Simon. Put out like a counterclaim saying, "Oh no, that's my story. Like Ed Bloom didn't come up with this story or whatever." But we get a great movie either way. I don't know what the conflict is with who actually came up with the story, but we're gonna end up with a really good movie. And Ged Watanabe, who is a Japanese American from Ogden, Utah, of all places. I didn't know he was from Utah. He's also in like a couple of the teen movies from the 80s, right?
It's like Pretty in Pink. No.
16 Candles.
16 Candles.
Yeah. There you go. So he's well known from that. I didn't know he grew up in Utah, but he does. And you obviously get the supporting cast is mixed with some comedians and some people you might know, like George Wendt, you might recognize from Cheers. Rick Overton is a comedian, but he's also in here. Mimi
John
Rogers,
Turturro.
John Turturro,
Yeah.
running out.
Very young John Turturro.
Yeah, very young. Yeah.
The guy that I like also is the little guy, the little short pudgy guy whose wife who wanted to leave work to go because his wife was
Oh,
in
I
labor.
love that guy. Yeah.
His name is Ito. The character's name is Ito, and he's like dancing towards the end. But
Yeah.
his name is Rodney Kageyama, and he's actually from San Francisco. So what's funny is that they were able to get like you talk about casting and like people like not casting the right people, but this is a good group of like Japanese American actors that have some talent. And also like comedic actors of the time that were kind of like coming into their own. Like I think at that time, like Michael Keaton had only stopped doing like stand-up comedy maybe for a couple of years because he started out. You guys know this? Keaton started out in like stand-up.
Oh yeah, and everything he did was comedy.
Yeah. So they just did a Comedy Store documentary. He's actually in there. He does a huge interview with Mike Binder. That just came out.
Oh, that gets me excited to see it now.
Yeah, it's pretty good. I think that's all the major cast. Well, the guy playing Sato, who's like a sadistic little jerk, the nephew of the main executive, like the guy who owns the company, right? Who wants to take over.
He's just mean.
Ged wants to know his character's job. His name is Sato or whatever. That's it. I mean, I think I described the movie well enough. Essentially, American auto plant down on its dumps. They want to reopen it. This guy the main character makes a lot of promises, like a good salesman, and he's got to convince the Japanese executives to work with them, and they got to try to work with them. And him and Ged Watanabe's characters are kind of in a bad situation. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like they have a hard road ahead of them, but I think that's why like they're relatable to each other, convincing like both sets of workers to pull it together. But let's go to first impressions. I know I'm kind of overselling this movie because I like this movie a lot, so I want to kind of
it's great. Yeah,
watch it at least once. Let's go to first impressions. Let's jump over to Nick. What's your first impressions of Gung Ho?
I got two things. One, this is Ron Howard, right? If I'm not mistaken. Yeah, it was neat. I mean, I loved his 80s movies. He was such a great. You forget how many good movies this guy made in the 80s, you know? And also Michael Keaton. The movie. He steals the show in this thing and just his performance. And I just forgot what a great, like almost comical actor he was, but still he was about to go to like a different level. That's mine.
Okay, cool. I was like, yeah, like all right.
I don't know if it's an internet glitch or what happened.
Yeah. I was like, that was dramatic. It was suspenseful for a second.
It was like, oh, what happened? It was like, no, the internet died.
Dave, you got a dangerous first impression for us on this one?
I don't know if it's dangerous, but I have a second impression because I think I saw this movie like one time when I was a kid. So I don't know, figure like 5. And I have one memory which will come up later of the movie. But so I kind of watched it with fresh eyes. Great movie. This movie is so fun. And it breathes a lot. It kind of moves along fast. Michael Keaton has a lot of charisma. All the secondary characters. This also has, the secondary characters actually have third dimensions to them. They don't just feel like just shoving them in there for a plot point. I don't know. The characters felt lived in. I really liked this movie. I had a fun time with it. I felt good.
Yeah, there you go.
Feel good.
I think you probably took Adam's first impression there.
Yeah. It made me feel appreciative of, having a job. Like, maybe you want more people to have jobs and taking pride in your work and forging relationships with people in the workplace. It made you feel so good emanating from like this supposed fiction, but I don't know, the whole thing felt real, like we were watching these people's lives, you know. I don't feel like anything was overacted or anything, so that's, you know, I felt good.
Slice of life from Double
Yeah.
A. My first impression, if I think back, I've seen this movie now a handful of times, maybe more than 3, but less than 7, somewhere in between 5 or 6 times. What I think about my first impression was just it had a good cast and it had a good story. That's what keeps bringing you back is the cast and the story. And I think ultimately, like, the cast may do well in another movie and that with that same amount of chemistry if they're put in the right scenario. You know what I mean? It is almost
With
a
the good
situation
script
comedy,
or
but
good
on a
scenario,
bigger scale.
yeah.
Yeah. But that's it. Great cast. If I had a simple first impression, I would just be the people that are in the movie. Wow. Okay, so we'll be right back after these messages. Tonight we're actually sponsored by Mack Weldon, which is a clothing company. They are trying to establish some kind of new normal for everyone that's out there, and they want to bring you casual buttons up and jeans and knit polos. They got you covered with unmatched comfort and fit. My experience with Mack Weldon is I ordered these super, super, super comfortable socks that come in these little packages here, and they have a great title for their underwear, 18-hour jerseys. I don't know if you can actually wear them for 18 hours. I don't recommend that, but they are pretty damn comfortable. So if you're looking for quality stuff at reasonable prices, and I'm a working class guy, but when you put these on, you feel like $1,000,000 if that's your thing. So they got sock shirts, hoodies, underwear, polos. They promise comfort and a consistent fit. So far, I've been pretty damn comfortable. They look great. They feel great for everyday life. They got a wide range of custom fabrics. They actually have a loyalty program. You have to look into that. It's called Weldon Blue. They guarantee you're going to be comfortable. For 20% off your first order, you can go to MackWeldon.com/BingeWatchers. Enter promo code BingeWatchers. That's MackWeldon.com/BingeWatchers. Promo code BingeWatchers for 20% off. Mack Weldon, who's reinventing men's basics. And that's it for these messages, because all you get, guys, is 30 seconds. You don't get any more. That's the way it works around here. Trying to have a show. Trying to run a show.
Can
right.
we see
Sorry,
the underwear?
folks. You want to see the underwear?
Yeah.
All right. There's been a request to see these 18 hours.
And John, can you describe them? Very sexy like.
Yeah. If you're listening at home, if you're only on the audio journey with us, the audio adventure, classic way to listen is not to watch, but just to listen. I'll describe them. So I don't know. It's kind of a somber blue gray, maybe a navy blue here. We got some nice pinstriping on the trim here.
I like
that.
And
it's not breezy. They are tight. They do hug the boys, but you feel comfort in knowing that your boys are taken care of. So
the boys are okay.
18 hours.
You get 20% off that Mack Weldon.
Wow.
And now we're discussing a movie. I guess I should pull my movie notes back up.
Yeah, they look nice.
Yeah, Nick, you missed the boat on the Mack Weldon. You missed it.
Yes, I did. I had a lot of work that week. I don't know what happened.
Forget it. Adam got some Mack Weldon, I think.
I know. That's what I heard.
They're in the mail.
Oh, they're still in the mail. Just like your gummies.
They're probably in the mailbox right now.
Folks, if you don't know, I just recalled the story from a couple episodes ago. I don't know if you know of our relationship with Sunday Scaries, which is a vitamin company, which you can also get if you go to our website under our special offers. You can look up our vitamin deal. But Adam's been waiting for a bag to show up forever. I don't know if they're gonna.
I finished around like 2 months ago. Yeah.
I'm still checking the mailbox as often as possible. I just have to be out of town right now, but I'm sure they're not in there. I'm just, I'm hoping.
Be sure that the mailman didn't take them for themselves. They've been going through
I'm worried
times.
about that. I think.
You know what's going to be hard about the next category, guys, is picking your favorite bits from a movie that's full of like great scenes, and potentially almost every scene is a favorite bit for somebody. Nick, do you have a favorite bit or two from this movie?
I'm just giving you the gist, but I don't want to ruin this, but the end when they deliver all the cars and then the cars are not perfect.
Well, you can just say the ending is well earned, like.
And no, it is well earned, but you know what I mean? I thought it was really good, but like the cars aren't like perfectly put together, but they delivered, Yeah.
I mean, they had a big order. I mean, they're like,
give us a huge order
by the end of the month.
And I like that. I like that, like Michael Keaton and all the guys, they all work together as a team. And there's so many bosses I've had that like they just stand in the corner and then they blame you when shit goes wrong. And you're like, no, I like that he was working his ass off. I thought that was beautiful. It made you feel good, as this is saying.
Yeah, when the Japanese executives were down there on the same line and everybody comes together, it was really an emotional swelling point for me. Like, I'm not gonna lie, I cried at the end. Like, I was so happy.
Great movie.
It was a happy cry, though. It wasn't like, oh, I'm so sad. No, I was like crying. Like, there's good in the world, and like people can come together and overcome their differences, and it made me feel really good on the inside. And so what a great call. This movie was like, it did everything it was supposed to do. So
audience, Adam's actually crying right now if you can't see on the video. That's amazing.
The most sentimental thing that gets me is when his friend gets in trouble, when George Wendt character Buster gets in trouble, and he's literally handing him a broom saying, you can't quit your job, dude. You got 2 kids, you can't quit your job.
Yeah.
You're about to face like maybe the most embarrassing thing in a job environment that you've ever faced. But like, I mean, being a dad, like literally, like the first thing you do when you wake up is eat shit. Like that's your breakfast, eating shit. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So like that's a pretty like they did such a great job in that scene. I don't know how they got both actors to that level. But like them giving it to each other in that scene, Michael Keaton and George Wendt, that's like that. You could show that scene in acting class or something, or directing class. Like, just study this 5 minutes right here. Look at the business he's bringing. Look at the business he's bringing, and all they had was a fucking broom. you know what I mean?
Right.
Like,
I really love George Wendt's determination. He was really in that moment in that scene. Like, I don't know. I wasn't thinking about watching a movie. I mean, I was watching it on my computer and I was lost in it. That's crazy. Yeah. Like, there's a whole world going on around you, and George is definitely walking. You know?
Well, I think that's where Ron Howard's strength as a director comes in, because he was an actor. Because honestly, this movie isn't a flashy movie. Like, we can talk about how great this movie is, but like,
it's
nothing about the look of it stands out to me. But it's the acting and the characters and all that. That's because it's kind of a drab-looking movie when you really think about it. It's very like brown.
You know? Well, it's not dressed up. It's immersive because
flat.
It's not flashy.
Yeah.
The most dynamic shots are
it's all in the acting in this one.
Yeah.
There's a look on George Wendt's face in that movie where they're all in the hospital and the guy's getting taken care of, and they just found out that like, he lied, and they cut to George Wendt's look on his face. Oh my gosh, did I believe that look?
Okay, so we got to put a little more story in to explain the picture. So essentially, there's a false promise made to the American workers by their leader, the Michael Keaton character, and he says, by the end of the month, we got to turn in 13,000 cars. We get a partial raise. When the real deal is hit that 15,000 mark, you get your full raise, and we'll talk about bringing in your union benefits. And that's another critical scene that I'm talking about. Like when they realize that like they've been working towards a goal that doesn't exist. It's pretty, and they've been betrayed by somebody that they've known for like 20 years. So that's another big moment.
Well,
which falls into our favorite bit, that's for sure. But I don't know if something for anybody else's favorite bits. So Dave, let's get into yours in case we might have walked on them. But
I think Nick might be saying the same thing. I'm thinking I'm gonna go spoiler alert for a 35-year-old movie. But like the last kind of joke of the movie. Like, Michael Keaton's so pissed off at the guy, he says, hey, no, I'm taking this car. Here's my old car. I'm driving this one off the line. and turns over. He's like, all right, I'm in the clear. 5 feet, and the tires fall off. He falls back.
Bumper
it's
falls off.
It's a great slapstick moment in a movie. Like, you kind of needed that joke right before everything else happens.
Yes. It's so funny.
Like my heart,
and that's the moment I remembered as a kid. Like I remembered that one moment. But
me too. Yeah.
Well, right before that, he like pretended to wax a fake windshield that wasn't there. Right?
He just broke it. And he's like,
they're trying to change like the last 5 cars of the 15,000 or whatever, But that's funny. You stole my spoiler thunder. Look at that, Dave. You took a spoiler from Johnny Spoilers. Like that's hilarious. And I don't have any spoilers like that. I'm gonna go to my favorite bits now. The river thing. They had a ritual where they were bathing in the river all the time. the Japanese executives, and then at one point Michael Keaton joins them. Anybody baseball fans? Am I the only baseball fan? I'm like riveted by the American versus the Japanese executives. There's a baseball scene, right? There's a company baseball scene, which sets up the conflict between the one executive and the George Wendt character, which sets up that whole thing with the broom, like we were talking about. The bar scene. Oh, what's a slow mo?
No, lots of slow mo and the baseball stuff. They did some fancy stuff for, the sports movie stuff got incorporated in that little segment.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was an action movie for about 3 seconds.
Yeah. Finally, something looked like, that looked kind of cool.
Future movie had great montages, like let's work together montages, which again,
the movie starts out with a great montage.
Yeah. So we know what the
in Japan.
Yeah. He spends they spent a considerable amount in Japan actually. Taking Michael Keaton, they were really in Japan. They didn't fake it, they didn't soundstage it. They sent the actors to Japan, which is really another unique thing that a movie does. Like when a movie does real things, it's just always so much better, right?
You can always tell.
Yeah, you can tell. You can
the pressure's
tell.
on too.
Mm-hmm. What? The pressure's
on. You spend the budget. You got them all the way there. Like, all right, do your thing. I mean, it's real then.
Yeah.
Run around with the whole Japan scene was really interesting. Who knows where they filmed that? Maybe that was also in Japan. I'm thinking it was probably here because it was inside. But
you're talking about the boardroom scene?
Yeah.
That's actually, that's another great bit because it predates Google turning on and off everything by 30 years and him freaking out every time kill me.
Oh yeah.
It's got
lights down, lights up.
Yeah,
voice commands are triggering everything, and they're already setting the stage for in cinema for the Japanese to be ahead of us on everything.
Well, I don't know. It's kind of intriguing because they were thinking about that at the time, right? With Walkmans and all this stuff, things they didn't have. Clap on, clap off.
Well, can I talk about my favorite scene? Or are we moving on? What are we doing?
Oh
yeah. I thought you guys kind of were weaving in and out of them, but yeah. Now we're at Double A. His official.
Double A is the
official favorite scene is the fall from grace of our beloved main character when Michael Keaton's on the stage, and he's excitedly telling them the deal that he has made for they're going to beat the Japanese record or whatever. They're going to make 15,000 cars. In 1 month, which is probably a huge ramp up. You don't really know all the numbers in the movie, but then the discussion amongst the guys, hey, that's impossible. You weren't you advocating for us? And then he feels the pressure, and then they start coming up with numbers, and he's agreeing with it, and because it's easy to do that under the pressure instead of just no guys, we got to hit 15 and we can. And I told him you could. He doesn't go all the way. He has a lapse in confidence, and that lapse in confidence leads to a moral compromise, and then it creates the snowball. And he's yeah, but don't think about that number. Pretend I didn't. He's trying to minimize the lie that he just told, because all he did was really agree with them, and he shouldn't have done that. And the reason I love that part of the movie is just because it's the turnkey moment for setting up so much other stuff. And I think everyone has been put in a position like that before, and sometimes you just have to man up and be no. 13, no. I did advocate for you guys. It's 15 and you can, but for whatever reason, there's little moral failing, and then we got lots of drama out of it. And for a writer, that's cool too.
It's perfect, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, there was a good segue earlier because we were talking about heartfelt moments, but another heartfelt moment or another heartfelt thing that happened this week was we got a fan letter or email, and I guess this guy's been tuning in for a while. He's never communicated with us before. Sent us an email about a movie he'd like us to cover in the future, and his name's actually Nick, but it's not our Nick. It's another Nick. I'm not gonna read his last name. I'll leave it out. Basically, I'm just gonna read it. I'm gonna read it for the whole audience because I think it's pretty unique. So here we go. Hi guys, my name's Nick, and a while back I stumbled across a movie I never heard of. It completely blew me away, and so I've been desperately trying to convince everyone across movie fandom to give it a shot and hopefully drag it out of complete obscurity. The movie's called The Beast of War, aka The Beast, from '88, directed by Kevin Reynolds, starring George Zamunda, Jason Patric, and Stephen Bauer. It's only been released in 2 screens across the whole of the U.S. by Columbia Pictures, and I kid you not when I say it's the best Hollywood film you've never heard of. Quentin Tarantino's old writing partner, Roger Avery, has it down as the best movie of '88 on Letterboxd. That's an app. That's where people like. This is not part of his letter. I'm just explaining what Letterboxd is for anybody who doesn't know. It's an app where you can like rank the movies that you've seen. Mm-hmm. Just kind of a fanboy thing. And then now back to this letter. So he says, also, it's been given a rating of 7.3 on IMDb, 3.5 on Letterboxd, but not a single critic's review on Rotten Tomatoes. But it does have an audience score of 84%. A couple of podcasts have reviewed it and favorably. They've called it War Horse versus War Machine on the something like the Retro Movie Geeks podcast. I'm not familiar with those guys. The latter, on the basis of my recommendation, is I continue to pester Criterion to do something to save this movie from continual obscurity, but I can no longer get anything back from them. Oh well. Please seek this film out. It's available on DVD and streaming, so it won't be difficult to track down. If you do see it, let me know if you agree with me that it might be one of the best 10 American movies of the 1980s. One way or another, we need to find a way to raise this movie's profile and prevent it from continual obscurity once and for all. And then he asked us to check out the trailer, and he sent us a link. Dude, thanks, Nick, for writing in. We love to hear from the audience. This is your entire section. It's called Questions from Out There. Anything from the audience. You can email us at host@bwpodcast.com. We'd love to hear your stories. We want to know what you're watching so we then can watch them along with you and hear your opinions about the stuff that we're watching every week. So this is a movie about a Russian tank commander mental breakdown as they get separated from their like main squadron or whatever in like a Middle East conflict. I think do you remember that Tom Hanks did a movie where he was helping like Afghan rebels fight?
Tom
Hanks? He was like playing a politician.
Tom
Hanks.
War?
Yeah,
Tom Wilson's War or whatever it is. So he plays a politician who was like a real Democrat from Texas or something who went to Afghan and he was like helping the rebels fight like Russians in the 80s. And I think this story, The Beast, is like the other side. This is the Russians dealing with the Afghan conflict from their perspective, but this tank unit is separated from the rest of their army or unit or whatever, and they're having a bunch of internal conflicts. It kind of reminds me of like The Fury, that tank movie with Brad Pitt, World War II movie. But this obviously came out first. Jason Patric, he's a great actor. He plays a guy that's is losing his moral compass because shit gets more and more crazy. I don't know if you guys have ever.
I've never heard of it until this. Watching the trailer right now in silent, and the visuals look incredible, and I like the director.
I was gonna say Robin Hood, I almost said Men in Tights. Prince of Thieves.
I mean, it's not. It may have been more timely in the '80s because that was when that direct conflict was going on. I think like today. I mean, this is definitely not the month to watch this movie because we're not doing movies of conflict. We're like, as Adam said earlier, we're trying to do movies that are bringing people together, that make people feel better about like the way things are, and it would be hard to watch this movie now because you're revisiting like an old conflict. So like some things maybe shouldn't be rediscovered. I mean, we'll give it a fair shot. If this guy says it's supposedly one of the best movies of the 80s, we'll investigate. We'll go and see what the deal is.
I remember stocking this on the shelf a lot when I worked at a video store. I always remember seeing it when he said Jason Patric. I'm like, oh, I remember that cover. I have a weird mind for that. Even if I haven't seen a movie, I can remember the cover because I used to stock them all the time at the video store.
It looks pretty good. I'm down to check it out.
Adam, what do you think about Nick sending us in his letter and introducing us to this movie?
Well, we'll see if it pans out as a good film. I'm on a feel-good kick. I don't know if I'm going to get a feel-good.
You don't think this movie will get feel-good?
I don't know. If I don't feel good, I'm going to be like, mm-mm.
If it makes you feel good, you might need to go see a psychologist.
So maybe December or January.
Well, I don't know. He said, I mean, what did he say in here? He said it's one of the best movies of '88.
Yeah, but what kind
of best
they
gotta see it.
There's a lot of different kinds of best movies.
Is it better than Die Hard? Come on.
Sometimes like there's
better than Academy Award winning Rain
feel like crap at the end. We're on the feel good kick, Nick. You got is it a feel good movie from Find a lost feel good movie. I don't know. Maybe it is. I don't know.
You know, one day, like, we're going to fall apart and not have time to prepare anything. Like, we're not going to have notes. We're not going to have a movie that we watch. And, like, this next segment is going to be the thing that saves the entire episode. What is slowly becoming our personal favorite section, because it's always a surprise. We don't know what each other are watching every week unless we text each other in the middle of the night. Hey, I just watched this. And that kind of shit.
If it's in the middle of the night and we're saying he, I'm assuming it's on
Dave.
Pornhub or something.
That's what Dave texts me all the
in my
time.
mind,
It says
You'll
Dave,
never
in
guess
my
what I'm
mind-
watching, Teehee.
But here's the thing. In my mind, that's how Dave sends every single text message. That's what I hear. Yeah.
I woke
Especially
up
when you're talking about anime that you love.
Teehee.
I don't know if I push him too hard, he's gonna bring up the movie that dare not speak its name. So okay, what else are the binge watchers watching? Let's shoot over to Nick. Nick, what'd you watch this week?
Oh, guys, I watched one of our boys that was on the podcast a while ago. I watched one of his classic 90s movies, Ski School. You guys remember Ski School?
All right, dude,
Vaguely.
I know you were going to Dean Cameron.
Oh, man.
You didn't have to say his name.
Dude, it's good, man. It's like awesome ski scene, party, bunch of prank stuff like Revenge of the Nerds, and then random softcore sex scene. And then repeat. It's great. I love it. And Dean Cameron is amazing in this. And so is his partner, I think, Stuart Frecken or whatever.
Quoting Nick Waits for the episode notes here. Random softcore sex.
ski scene, prank.
Ski scene. Yeah. Ski.
Softcore
Ski scene.
ski
Yeah.
scene. Yes.
Ski scene.
Dude, guys, watch Ski School. I'm telling you, it holds up great. It's beautiful. It's fun.
Dave, what are you watching?
I actually watched a new movie. I paid $25 to watch The Craft Legacy, and I actually really liked it, surprisingly. I was ready to hate it because I love the first one. I will say maybe a remake for the first 15 minutes, and then it does its own thing. So I really liked it. I've seen it get beat up by people online. I say if you like the original, don't hesitate. It's worth it. I thought so.
That was like a you didn't tell us anything. About
Well,
the-
I mean,
That's pretty good. You didn't spoil it.
Yeah, it didn't spoil.
I watched
Yeah.
Nothing Burger.
Well, it's also such a new movie. Like,
Love it.
I don't want to go too much into it and spoil something for somebody. It's not like a 35-year-old movie.
Is it as good as the first one?
Time will tell on that, but I surprisingly liked it a lot.
They ordered a number 3. They've already ordered a part 3. Did you
I
know
hope
that?
they kind of do because it is called Legacy and it does tie into the first. It's more of a sidequel. I mean, I guess it is a sequel.
Do
because
any characters from the first movie come to this one?
Yes, at the very end.
Okay, I'm just trying to figure out that.
And
Okay.
there's your
I
spoiler.
mean, and I'm sorry, like
Spoiler!
John kind of figured it out when we were talking about it, and I won't spoil it for
Oh,
people
yeah.
because
It's
new.
not in the trailer or anything.
No.
Well, they're
But-
just- it's
Is it
another group
Veruca
of
Salt?
girls.
Whatever his name is.
Yeah, well, it's you can assume that the main character is the daughter of one of the witches. From
I'm assuming so. Yeah.
right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that's the tie-in.
And like I said, it was nice because they, it doesn't fall beat for beat. Like maybe for 15 minutes, like I said, beat for beat, and then it's its own thing, so it doesn't fall into the same tropes as the first movie after a while. I'm not a teenage girl anymore, so I don't know if this is true to their experience, but I enjoy it.
The one at one point you said any more.
Yeah, he's gone through the whole. He's
You're right.
gone through his whole thing. He's what do they call that? I don't know. You've been transformed. He's already done. He's done.
I guess so.
His name didn't used to be David, but we've been friends. He'll be on the VH1 special. Don't worry.
I can't wait.
About Dave's life. Okay, let's see. Adam, you really didn't tune into anything. Been a busy guy, huh?
Oh no, I saw some stuff. I watched an old Australian horror movie called Patrick, which is a very inventive movie for the lack of special effects they had back then. That everything had to be practical. And the movie is basically about a man who's like an invalid and maybe brain dead that has the ability to manipulate his environment. So maybe he isn't.
Is that on Shudder? He's like it's a psychic killer, right? Yeah.
Yeah, that and I think that was interesting. That worth watching. But In keeping with good feeling type movies, thanks to Dave, I saw Happy Happy Joy Joy, which is a documentary about Ren and Stimpy and its creation and stuff. And I thought
that's actually a good feel-good movie until the last 15.
Yeah. So I was like,
Dave,
this will be
The
great.
look on, you know what though? The look on Dave's
Because
face,
you gotta
he's
watch it for
figuring out how he
yourself.
got
People
to
who
see
know
that.
will know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Oh no, I just thought like because Dave sent Dave sent Adam, not Nick. Dave sent Adam a device. The device is logged into all the stuff.
Can you explain what that is? Because when you just say device,
Yeah.
It's one of those cable boxes that has all the channels for it. No, it's a Roku thing. It's like a thing to play apps and TV stuff, and so.
Is that the Android one? It's X. All right, I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
Anyway,
I thought it because it had happy and another happy and a joy and another joy that it would be a feel good experience, and for the most part it was. But yeah, it takes
Dave, you're worried that
darkness.
You don't want people to know your side hustle of selling the sex toys. You can't bring that up on the show.
Yeah.
Find it on the links page.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. Special offer this week, folks. 20% off.
Boom.
Let's see. Oh, what did I watch? Do you guys ever watch that show Ugly Americans, where the social worker is trying to integrate like a bunch of monsters into regular society?
No.
And a drunk wizard is like his coworker, and it's like office style stuff. It's pretty cool. He like has an affair with a demon who's like turns out to be like the devil's daughter, and he has to go down to hell and have like an awkward dinner with him. So he's going down on the really long escalator into hell, and like they get really offended when he says like we're all trying to get along, and then everybody at dinner like stops and looks at him like who's this guy? It's pretty good, and his roommate's like a zombie that keeps trying to fight the urge to eat him in the middle of the night, right? Like at one point he gives him Rufalin, and then so the zombie roommate has to call his like AA sponsor to be like, dude, I'm staring at my roommate. I really want to eat his brain. And the guy on the other line, he's like, what are you doing? Are you getting like excited by what I'm telling you? Like, it's really funny.
Isn't the main character's name like Lily White because he's like the whitest character in the world?
I forget what his name is. It's like Mark or Steve or something. It's pretty plain. But
I thought it was Lily White.
Watch that on. It's on the CBS All Access. Has a bunch of the old Comedy Central stuff and all the Reno 911s, the old Reno 911s. So, and Beavis and Butthead. The other thing I watched was Mando season 2 just dropped. Mandalorian season 2 just dropped. It's got one episode.
I've been
spoilers. I haven't watched it yet.
I'm not spoiling it. I'm just gonna say this, like.
Wait, they're doing week by week?
I'm not gonna spoil it. I'm just gonna spoil it.
I'm not gonna spoil it. But the Mandalorian, I think that Jon Favreau, who created it, does most of the writing, pops in every once in a while to do like the season openers and the closers, and is like overseeing the whole arc series on Disney Plus. He must have watched Western TV shows like Gunsmoke. Essentially, and I was trying to write this with Dave a few years ago. We're trying to write like an outer space podcast, like a fictional podcast, but it was going to be like a Marshall in outer space. Like essentially, that's what the Mandalorian's doing. Like there's a town with a problem. He's got to solve that problem, and then he also has like his other story going on, in the background. But it's like a town has a problem. He goes to the town, solves the problem, moves on to the next town. It's like it is
every week it does that, right?
Every week, yeah. One thing that's making me mad is like as a streamer, they're not doing the binge watch thing where they're releasing all the episodes.
They didn't do that. They didn't do that last season either.
No, they did.
Yeah.
Or they did.
I'm sorry, but I'm kind of agreeing with that because it stretches out the suspense of a show.
I agree. It makes me more interested.
Like people, they just did that with The Boys, and they got a lot of backlash. But he's like, hey, this is how TV was 7 years ago. Deal with it.
Yeah.
Well,
so you
like
a long time to make.
You like that model where they're just giving you breadcrumbs. You don't want give me everything now and let me consume it on my own.
I tend to feel like I get more into it if I have to watch it week by week. Where if I do it within like 8 hours, then I'm just done. And a week later, I'm like, oh, what show did I watch again?
Actually,
oh my gosh.
Now that I think about it, that's our model too. We want everybody to listen and watch every week.
Every week.
But they can listen to old ones and binge if you're behind the times. You can binge. But let's say you have 10 frozen cheeseburgers. Do you put them all in the microwave at once and consume all of them, or do you eat one a day?
I'd feel pretty sick after that. Yeah.
Although I want to tie something John just said, even though we're way past Sean Connery, just to slip in another movie. John said air or marshal in space, and Sean Connery was an air marshal or marshal in space. Outland. Check that movie out.
Great movie, by the way.
Yeah.
Great movie. Didn't the villain have like syphilis or something?
Well, he was going around like killing space hookers. Like no lie, they were space hookers.
No, it was. Yeah, it was killing.
Yeah.
It was like a crazy space serial killer cop movie.
But it was based upon Western stuff too, wasn't it?
I think so. Yeah, it was basically like I think he called it like High Noon in Space or something like that.
Yeah, it was. Yeah.
Well, we could be here all night talking about Sean Connery, but we hope you felt good while you listened or watched this episode. Binge-Watchers will be back next week with another feel-good movie. We're actually kicking it to our boy Double A. Adam, what is our selection for next week's feel-good movie?
We're going to be watching a Taika Waititi movie who brought you some pretty amazing things. Thor Ragnarok. He brought us other films.
What we do in the shadow.
Sorry, I'm blanking.
What was it? Jojo Rabbit? Yeah.
We're going to just told us what to watch for next week.
Yeah, the Hunt for the Wilder.
Actually, I could have ruined it for you. I'm sorry. I don't know.
No, I mean,
is it called Hunt for the Wildebeest or Hunt for the Wilder People? What is the name?
Hunt for the Wilder People, not Hunt for the Wildebeest.
Oh, nice.
No, it's about a troubled kid that gets a bond with his stepdad, and they get lost in the bush together. And it's a really sweet movie. It has so many good feels.
It's the kid from Deadpool 2. Yeah. The kid who has the fireball powers from Deadpool 2.
Dude, Adam, good pick.
This is a good pick.
I've been wanting to watch this, so I have no idea what I've heard. It's great, so I can't wait to watch it. Actually, that's a really good pick. I've heard good things.
Go into it not really knowing what to expect. I didn't know what to expect. Somebody just told me to watch it, and I watched it, and then I couldn't wait to show it to someone else, and I watched it with someone else, and then watching it with someone else, and now I'm going to watch it again.
I'm excited to watch it with you guys.
Nice.
Nick, take us out.
Yo, everything got real. It was a good show. I can't wait to watch Life of the Wildebeest next week. Stuff got real. Late. Sorry, I had to ruin that title. I'm sorry. Life of the Wildebeest, whatever it is.
Beast of the Southern Wild.
Oh, man. You set it up. Thank you.
Nice.
Dave, hey.